How do you solve a mystery when the crime scene is the entire planet and the events happened hundreds of thousands of years ago? Well, that's pretty much the job of a climate scientist. It's a massive detective story. And today, we're going to look at exactly how scientists followed the clues our Earth has left behind.
Oh, and just a quick heads up before we really get going. This is part 15 of our 20-part series on an introduction to Earth sciences for everyone, brought to you by Virtualization Options LLC.
All right, first things first, let's clear up a really common point of confusion. People throw around the words weather and climate like they're the same thing, but they are not at all. The best way to think about it is this. Weather is the outfit you picked out for today. Is it rainy? Is it sunny? But climate is your entire wardrobe. It's the whole collection of clothes you own for summer, winter, fall, spring, the long-term pattern you've built up over years.
So that brings us to the central mystery, doesn't it? I mean, sure, we can talk about the climate for the last 100 years or so, because we have instruments and detailed records. But how in the world do we know what the temperature was 10,000 years ago, or even 500,000 years ago? How do you investigate a past that no one was around to write down?
Well, this is where our climate detectives enter the scene. Scientists have this amazing toolkit and a really logical process they use to piece together the planet's past. They're basically cracking what is, quite literally, a very, very cold case.
And their playbook is the scientific method, which, works almost exactly like a detective's investigation. First, you observe the scene. You gather every scrap of physical evidence you can find. Then you form a hypothesis. That's kind of like building a case, right? Here's what I think happened. And finally, you test that theory against every new piece of evidence to see if the story holds water. It's all about letting the clues tell you the story, not the other way around.
So what are these clues? Well, they are everywhere, often hiding in plain sight. We like to call them the silent witnesses. Scientists get data from ancient ice cores drilled from glaciers. They look at the rings inside thousand-year-old trees. They analyze layers of mud from the bottom of the ocean and even study fossilized pollen. Each one of these is a tiny piece of the puzzle.
Now, to really get a feel for how this works, let's just zoom in on one of these clues. We're going to take a deep dive into the ice, which might be the single most important climate archive we have on the entire planet.
So what scientists do is they drill deep into the massive ice sheets in places like Antarctica, and they pull out these long cylinders of ice called ice cores. You can think of each layer of ice as a single year's snowfall, stacked one on top of the other, going back centuries. But here's the incredible part. Trapped inside those layers are tiny, microscopic bubbles of air from Earth's ancient atmosphere, perfectly preserved.
By analyzing those little bubbles, scientists can directly measure what the atmosphere was like in the distant past. It's an absolutely mind-blowing time capsule. And get this, the oldest continuous ice core records we have stretch back a staggering 800,000 years.
And here is probably the most crucial thing that this 800,000-year record shows us. The planet's climate has always changed. It's gone through natural cycles, like the ice ages. But the key factor here is the speed of change. The natural warming that happens when the Earth comes out of an ice age is slow. It's gradual. The warming we've seen in just the last 150 years, it is happening way, way faster than anything we see in the natural geological record. That speed is what's so critical.
Okay, so we've seen how scientists investigate the past. Now let's look at the usual suspects. I'm talking about the fundamental forces that control what a region's climate is like to begin with.
So, a few big things are in charge here. Latitude is probably the biggest. Simple, right? The closer you are to the equator, the more direct sunlight you get, and the warmer it is. Then you've got altitude. The higher up you go in the mountains, the colder it gets. And finally, a huge one is your proximity to the ocean and the massive ocean currents that move heat all around the planet.
This is a perfect way to put it. These currents are basically the Earth's circulatory system. A fantastic example is the Gulf Stream. It carries all this warm water from the tropics way up to northwestern Europe. That's the reason a place like London is so much milder than, say, a city in Canada that's at the exact same latitude. It's this giant global heat transfer machine.
So when we put all of these pieces of the puzzle together, the clues from the ice, the understanding of how the climate system works, we start to get a really clear picture. We can actually start to read our planet's story. Because what all this really tells us is that the history of our world isn't just written down in our books. It's written in the land itself, in the water, in the air, the ice, the oceans, the trees. They hold the autobiography of our planet. And we've finally learned how to read their language.
And that leaves us with a really powerful, maybe even a little bit of a daunting thought.
For millions and millions of years, Earth has been writing its own story. But now, for the first time in its history, a single species, us, is holding the pen. So as we write this current chapter, the real question is, what story will it tell?